Hi everyone, welcome to Showtime Talk. I'm your host Tomoya. On this channel, I invite experts and guests to talk about baseball. Today I have Jeff Fletcher, the Angels beat writer for the Orange County Register, to talk about Shohei Ohtani and other major league news. So let's get started. Hi Jeff.
Hey Tomoya, how you doing?
Good. What are your thoughts on Ohtani's performance lately?
He's been great, pitching wise. Anyway, he's been really, he had that game in New York, Yankee Stadium, where he couldn't get out of the first inning, and ever since then he's been really good, consistently pitching 6 or 7 innings, giving up only 1 or 2 runs. He's not walking hardly anybody. He's been pretty efficient with his pitch count. He's been basically everything that you could have asked for from a pitcher. Offensively, he's had some trouble since the All-Star break, and I know a lot of people like to talk about the home run derby, and they think that might have messed him up, but I don't believe that. I think it's just a slump. That guys have slumps all the time, and I think that it's a little more difficult for him because, as the other guys in the lineup have kind of disappeared, and even Jared Walsh was out for a little while, so there was really nobody protecting him in the lineup, so he wasn't seeing very many strikes. So it's difficult, if you're trying to carry a whole team and they're not throwing you any strikes, you're going to swing the pitches out of the strike zone, which is going to make it even harder for you to hit. And I think that's a little bit what was happening. Just the last few days, I think he's gotten a little back on track. So hopefully for him, he will get things back to the way it was, before the All-Star game.
A lot of fans in Japan like to talk about why these slumps happen, and then is it the swing mechanics, and people talk about that all the time. But do you think it's more about like just hitters having ups and downs throughout the season or their career, and it just comes and go? Is that how you look at it?
Well, I mean, if you think about it, if a guy's a 300 hitter, that means he's going to get 3 hits out of every 10 bats, but he's not going to get exactly 3 hits out of exactly every 10 at bats. One stretch of 10 at bats, he's going to have 5. One stretch of 10 at bats, he's going to have 1. And if you just keep stretching that out into like bigger and bigger samples, out of one stretch of 100 at bats, he's going to only get 15 hits, and another stretch, he's going to have 40 hits. So that's just the way it works. I mean, it's just normal distribution of performance, and there are other things that affect the performance a little bit. Your swing can get a little out of whack. It could be, you can be facing better pitchers over a certain period. That was another thing the Angels faced, the Dodgers and the A's a lot, and although Ohtani didn't hit against the Dodgers very much, but they did face some good pitching, and that's gonna hurt. And if you face really good pitching for 5 or 6 games in a row, all of a sudden it looks like you're in a slump, but it's really just that you were facing good pitching. So I don't think anybody should really read too much into, a particular stretch of 20 or 30 or 40 at bats. I think you should just kind of look at the big picture. And in the big picture, he's still having a great season offensively.
So a lot of it has to do with chances too, like who you're facing against and just luck.
Yeah, I mean, there's just a million factors. You can hit the ball really hard 5 times and 4 of them are caught, and then another time you can hit 3 bloopers and they're hits, and all of a sudden it looks like, oh, you're hot or you're cold, but it's just the way the game works. Is just kind of natural, random chance.
At this point, is Ohtani the Angels' ace pitcher?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, he's their best pitcher for sure. And there's a pretty big gap to the second best pitcher. It's probably Patrick Sandoval right now, but he's definitely performed at or above the level that anybody thought he could do, and it's definitely been an important pitcher for them.
What did you think of yesterday's hitting duel between Ohtani and Guerrero Jr.? Was it a pretty good atmosphere?
Yeah, it was pretty entertaining. I think that people can make a little too much of it because obviously it's just one guy and it's just one game, and it's not like this was going to decide who's the MVP or anything like that. I think Ohtani's going to win the MVP, but it's just nice to have the 2 guys on the same field so we can talk about them. Basically, it's more a thing to talk about than a thing to watch, really. Guerrero actually got on base 2 of the 3 times he faced him, so in that sense, you could say he won. But I think Ohtani still had a pretty good game. I think Ohtani is well ahead of him in terms of most MVP voters' minds too.
Some people say that if Guerrero Jr. wins a Triple Crown, he should win the MVP. But has as at least the writer's perception of Triple Crown changed over the years?
Yeah, I mean, I think in a normal year, if Shohei Ohtani did not exist, I think that would be true, that he would win the Triple Crown. But Shohei Ohtani is doing something that nobody has done. So, the Triple Crown is really rare. It's hard to do. I want to say it's happened, 10 times, something like that. But what Shohei Ohtani's done is happened basically 0 times. So I think that kind of trumps the Triple Crown if that's what happens.
What do you think? What are your thoughts on how well the Angels are doing in August?
Well, they're just kind of plodding along. They seem to do pretty well against the bad teams and not so well against the good teams, which has been kind of their pattern for pretty much the whole season. They're pretty much running out of time to make a run to the playoffs. They're a little too far behind, and they don't have enough games left, and they really haven't shown the ability to put together a really good run where they win 10 out of 12 or something like that, which is what they're going to need to start to get back into it. I think they've played okay. In some ways they've probably played better than they should have considering all the injuries they've had, but it's still not good enough probably for them to make the playoffs.
What are your thoughts on how well the young guys are doing that they brought up recently?
Well, there have been many young guys brought up. Some of them have done pretty well. Some of them not done so well. Joe Adell has looked pretty good in his first week coming back. He certainly looked like he's made some improvements from last season. And Brandon Marsh came up a little before him, and he's having some trouble. So it's going to be interesting to see how long they go with him, if they reduce his playing time or send him back to the minors. As for some of the young pitchers, obviously Reed Detmers has only had a couple starts. He's had some good moments in those starts, but he's also gotten into some trouble. He's still very young. He was just drafted last year. Chris Rodriguez, since they put him in the rotation, has looked pretty good. Austin Warren is a young guy who they just brought up and has just pitched in relief, and he's actually looked very good in a pretty limited sample. So it's a pretty mixed bag on the young guys so far.
What are your thoughts on the Angels' decision to bring those young guys up at this point of in the season?
Well, I think it makes perfect sense. I think that they're not going to admit it publicly and say that they're out of it and they're looking towards 2022, but I think that realistically that's what they're doing. And I think that you want to get the most information you can on your young guys so you know what you need to add in the off season. And I think they really want to find out, how good these guys are going to be. Can they really count on them, specifically with the pitchers, because they're going to need to add some pitching in the off season. So they need to figure out how much pitching do they really need to add? Do they have 3 of the young starters that they can count on, or is it 4, or is it 2? Whatever that number is, they need to figure that out. And I think the last 2 months will help them do that.
Tell us what happened to Anthony Rendon.
Yeah, so he had been on the injured list 3 times this year with a groin injury in April. He hurt his knee in May when he fouled the ball off his knee. And then in July, he had a hamstring injury. All these injuries took a little longer to rehab than he expected, and he was getting pretty frustrated. So he finally kept seeing more doctors, talking to more players. And what they came up with was he actually had a hip condition that was sort of affecting everything else. And it didn't necessarily have anything to do with him fouling the ball off his knee in May, but the groin injury in April and the hamstring injury in July were both sort of related to the hip injury. And also when he was playing in between those injuries, he still wasn't able to perform really at the level he's accustomed to because he didn't have his legs, the strength in his legs that he's used to having. So he finally, realized this, and they decided that he's going to have surgery. He's going to end the season. And the hope, for him and the Angels is that he comes back next year and it's not an issue anymore. And he can be back to the player he was, for the 3 years before the Angels got him. And that certainly would be a big lift for them because they really didn't get anything out of him this year. And it certainly hurt them. Coming into the season, you would say Anthony Rendon and Mike Trout are 2 of the top 10 players in baseball. And the Angels really haven't had either one of them this year. I mean, basically Rendon was not himself the entire year, and Trout was as good as ever, but only for about 6 weeks before he got hurt. So that's a pretty big loss to take out, 2 of your really good hitters. And now that they got Shohei Ohtani, who came out to be an even better hitter than they expected, so that certainly was a plus. But if they had all 3 of those guys going together at their, expected level, that's a really, really dangerous middle of the order, maybe the best, set of 3 hitters that any team in baseball could have. So they still have a chance to have that next year, and I think that would be a big boost for them, certainly.
Is Trout coming back this season?
That is a great question. I don't know the answer to that. I think probably still yes, but it's been so long and he's been kind of in a holding pattern for really 3 weeks now. He, about July 20th, I actually talked to him and he was running the bases and he said he felt great. And he said he felt he was really close, But I think what happened then is he actually pushed it a little too hard and he had a setback. And then since then, he's just been kind of waiting for it to heal better, to feel stronger. And it still hasn't happened. So, any day now, I guess he could wake up and all of a sudden it could feel better and he could kind of start ramping up his workouts again. But, we're still waiting for that to happen. And at a certain point, it's just going to be too late in the season. It's not going to be worth, having him go to the trouble of rehabbing to come back. And they're just going to say, forget it. So I don't think we're at that point yet. But if he still hasn't played 10 days from now, 2 weeks from now, then you might have to start talking about just ending the season for him.
Will Trout and Rendon be paid full amount, even if they miss some time for their injuries?
Yeah, baseball contracts are guaranteed, so they get paid their full salaries no matter what.
Anything else Angels fans should know about the team?
I just think that the most interesting thing going on right now, aside from Ohtani, and what he's doing, which is sort of in a class by itself, I think the young pitchers, that we've already talked about, Detmers, Rodriguez, Sandoval, Barria, Suarez. When the Angels are going to be good again, it's going to be because they have good pitching. And that's not going to be because they went and signed somebody, Max Scherzer, over the winter. It's not going to transform their team. What's going to transform their team is if those guys I talked about, if all of a sudden 4 of them become good pitchers, then boom, the Angels have good pitching. So I think the most important thing to watch the rest of the year is how well those guys do.
Hey guys, thanks for watching the video. If you liked it, don't forget to click the like button and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any future videos. You can also watch our past videos from the description below. Hope to see you again next time.